I wanted to tell you about a project I've been working on for the last couple of months. So, a few months back, I started playing Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep for my PSP. Now, I didn't grow up with PSP, I grew up with a DS, so PSPs and its experiences for me were kind of limited. I had kind of a standard affair with the DS, Gen 4, Gen 5 Pokemon, Super Mario 64, Mario Kart DS, but my experiences with the PSP kind of were limited to hanging out with my friends who had them and trying them every once in a while. Now, I bring all of this up because it's relevant, I promise. When you play a game on the DS, the save that you make goes directly onto the cartridge of the game. It didn't save to an internal memory or an external memory because it wasn't necessary at the time. Not until the DSi, when downloadable content was available. The PSP, however, did not operate in the same way. It used a proprietary media format called the UMD, the Universal Media Disc. These were super neat, actually. They're little tiny discs that sit inside these plastic housings that you sit inside the PSP console, spins the disc around. Not quite as secure as DS games, mind you, but they were a lot more versatile. There were albums that they put on these, there were movies that they put on these, not to mention games, of course. The difference is, because it was disc-based, it can't save to the disc itself, any saves that you make, so it had to save it to the PSP. Now, what that meant is PSPs had these cute little memory sticks that stuck inside the side of the console. You just stick it in and it was easily accessible. It's very similar to how the DS handled things later down, and the 3DS also, where you could just pop it out at any point. But it was proprietary, which was annoying. Now, nowadays they make adapters for micro SD cards. Way more convenient. There's a Twitter account I follow called Cheap Ass Gamer. Probably my favorite Twitter account that I follow. Makes me spend more money than I care to admit. The logic of following it is that you'll find good deals on video games, so you'll save yourself money, when in reality, you'll spend more money on video games that you have no time to play. Regardless, one of the things that they mention a lot is when Amazon or when Best Buy has sales on memory, internal, external, etc. Can be used on consoles or PCs or phones. If your phone has expandable memory, good luck with that. I needed to get some more memory for my PSP that I was modding, and it occurred to me that one of the projects that I'd really been wanting to take on for the last couple of years was to download every digital game that I own onto their respective consoles, and to install every physical game that I own onto their respective consoles, so that I could play them whenever I wanted. They would be kept updated automatically, etc., etc. That may seem like a silly statement to some of you, like of course you download the digital games that you own. But I have a lot of video games. Let me show you.
And these are just my physical ones. I don't have a problem.
Regardless, that was the starting premise of this project. It's evolved a little bit, and it's definitely still ongoing. Like, don't misunderstand. I have a lot to say, and I will have a lot to say later on the line. But for now, I wanted to kind of rant about how this project has evolved and taken over my life. After I obtained the memory that I needed for my PSP, I turned my attention to my Switch. Easy enough. All you have to do is remove the little micro SD card that's under the kickstand and replace it with a considerably larger one, and then tediously move every game from one micro SD card to the system to the other micro SD card. There's a more efficient way of doing this, but Nintendo's website doesn't recommend that you use that method unless you're running a Windows PC, and I'm currently running a Mac. This is where things started to go a little sideways. One of my many flaws is that I have a tendency to get distracted with new ideas while working on any project. And that was kind of what happened here. I had this spare micro SD card now, and I didn't really have a use for it, so I started thinking, well, I've got to have something that needs a micro SD card. I've got a bazillion different devices around here. There's got to be something. I wonder what I could do with it. This is my first smartphone, the LG Remark. It wasn't my first phone, but it was my first smartphone. This was the phone I had for the better part of high school, and I loved it. And I still kind of love it, honestly. I love its cute, weird, squarish design. I love the tiny, tiny physical keyboard that it has, and I love how satisfying the sliding mechanism is. Well, it dawned on me that I had not retrieved the photographs that I had on that phone off of it since high school. And despite the fact that that phone has a micro USB port, you can't actually take any data off of it without a micro SD card. I now had a spare one, so I stuck it in the phone and promptly found out that 64 gigabytes was too much data for a smartphone in 2012 to handle. So I couldn't read it. I was genuinely sad about it. I was really excited about having those photographs accessible to me, so I bought a smaller micro SD card. And the avalanche has begun. Well, now I was on a roll. I figured, hey, if I can get the photographs off my first smartphone, maybe I can get the photographs off of my second smartphone. This is an iPhone 4S. It was the phone I had for the later part of high school and early into college. This one would be a little bit more of a challenge to get the pictures off of because I don't remember what the password is. I started researching in hopes of trying to figure out some method of getting the pictures off of it. I didn't have it hooked up to iCloud at the time, so I couldn't do it that way. I found several free programs for Mac that said they could get the pictures off of locked iPhones, but they were liars. I browsed forums and Reddit, and I found absolutely nothing. But then I stumbled across something I didn't expect to. Out of sheer desperation, I pulled out my old gigantic laptop to see if maybe there was any information on the password or on the phone itself in here that I could use to get into it. Fun fact, this is the machine that I did most of the work for Oblivion on. And there it was. A backup. An honest-to-God backup of my phone on this machine. The listed date of the backup implied that it had been made relatively near the end of the phone's original period of use, but I couldn't verify any information further than that. The only issue now was I was nervous to wipe my phone clean and install the backup on it, because if anything was wrong with the backup, then there would be nothing that I could do to get anything off of this phone, ever. So I bought a second iPhone. It worked! I installed the backup onto this, and it immediately retrieved all of the data that I had, all of the installed apps, all of the pictures. Here's a dramatic reenactment of what that looked like. Oh my god. Unfortunately, that's only a mild exaggeration. For various and sundry reasons, I had a very emotional response to getting all of the pictures back. I was kind of MIA for a couple of days. Depression's fun. Anyway, let's get back on track here. I started talking about video games and then I kind of went in a different direction. I promise we're going to get back to that right now. I want to show you some of the other data management solutions that I've implemented to kind of try and get my life together. In addition to updating the Switch, I have also updated its contemporaries, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. You will see over here that I have two 8TB hard drives and one 4TB hard drive with wires running around to the backs of the consoles. The solution herein is because the Xbox and the PlayStation ship with 1TB hard drives, which is too little for the record, I have downloaded, installed, and such all of the games that I own for both and that are backwards compatible onto these hard drives. The 4TB hard drive is just for storing PlayStation 5 games because I have a lot of PS4 games. Now I do have to say that the experience of running external storage on the Xbox, masterful, brilliant. It's a great time. The Xbox reads everything very quickly, it communicates with the hard drive quickly, it runs all of the games natively off of it except for Series X games, obviously. You have to run that on an SSD. I do not have 8TB SSDs because those are expensive. It's a very great experience, and it can support up to two 8TB hard drives on the one console. The PlayStation, on the other hand, is a terrible experience.
It reads them very slowly. You can only have one hard drive hooked up at a time, even though that's the one that I need two on. I'll insert some footage here of how much of a mess trying to get it to work is, but I don't recommend the experience. And I've actually found out that that's kind of a constant thing with PlayStation consoles, is that external drives are not always the most usable. Say hi to yourself, you're on my wrist. In addition to the modern hardware, I've also updated all of my older hardware as well. In this magical box of random bits of storage, I have, for example, this very red hard drive, which I have used to put all of my Xbox 360 data on, all of the digital and physical games that I have for that are not backwards compatible with the Xbox Series X. I actually have also another tiny little card right here that runs the system on the Xbox 360 because I couldn't get it to move to this drive. I have an older system. I'm not 100% sure how the intricacies of that works. I'm still learning, but it works for now. So the PS3, on the other hand, much more of a challenge. I've kind of got wires and stuff strewn about everywhere at the moment because I'm still trying to handle it, but you can actually run PS3 games on external hard drives unless you mod the console. So I've done my darndest to get everything onto one internal drive for the system. That may not sound like a big thing, but the last thing I wanted to do was spend more money than I had to on this project, given how much I've already sunken into it. So I had to perform surgery. I moved the internal drive from my PlayStation 4 into my PlayStation 4 Pro, and the internal drive from my PlayStation 4 Pro into the PS3. It was a headache. The moving of the hard drives themselves, not so bad. Getting the systems to boot from those drives, nightmare. Took a lot of effort. A lot of browsing forums and making sure I had the right folders set up for the thumb drive that I inserted and had to boot the system from. It was a headache, but we made it work. I've also done a whole lot of PC data management. This little hard drive right here is now my go-to drive for pretty much everything. Not only do I have all of my archival footage and information from old Oblivion projects on this hard drive, but I've also got every single piece of data that was on any of my old machines on this hard drive as well. I bought this neat external drive adapter, and what it does is you can plug internal hard drives, 2.5 or 3.5 inch disk drives, into it, hook it up via USB, and then you can use that to treat them basically as external hard drives. So I moved all of the data off of my old computers onto here, and it's hooked up to my PC at all times, and I have, or my Mac at all times, and so I have all of that data on hand as well. Biscuit, my love. He's so mad at me because I'm pointing the camera at him. This other hard drive that I have is the Time Machine. I have this hooked up to my laptop at all time, and it makes regular backups of not only everything that's on the machine itself, but also on the drive that I have all of the other data on. So it acts as kind of a redundant aspect for the machine.
Now, all of this is fine and good, but I am nowhere near done. Like I said at the beginning, my original goal was to be able to download and install and update and play all of the games that I have licenses for, and that includes PC games. And I don't actually have a working PC right now, nor do I have anywhere near the space that it would require to download all of the games that I have licenses for. I've got Steam, I've got GOG, I've got Uplay, Origin, Epic, Itch, Amazon, tens and tens of terabytes of games that I currently don't have anywhere to put. The solution that I've been researching is network attached storage systems, NASs. To keep it brief, they're a little complicated, but to keep it brief, basically they're boxes that hold a bunch of hard drives that you hook up to your router, and then multiple people on your network can access them. So the idea is I would put all of the games onto the NAS and then move them to a gaming PC when it was time to play them. So that's what I've been up to the last couple of months. It's a big project. I'm really excited about it, even though I don't really think anybody else is. It's been stressful, and it's been expensive, and it will continue to be expensive. And it's taken up a lot of time that I would have allocated for other projects. I really, 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 really want to do live music. I'm hoping I can get that started sometime this summer. The other thing of note about this whole thing is I recognize that I'm going to have to repeat this entire process in 5 to 7 years. Hard drives fail. It's just a part of their lifespan. It's something that we are collectively aware of and need to be prepared for. That's why redundancies and backups are so important. But I'm glad I've gotten kind of a hold of all of my digital data. It's information and art that's valuable to me, and I don't want to risk losing it. And I would encourage you to consider doing the same. Maybe not necessarily to the extent that I'm doing. Everybody has a different use case scenario, but you don't want to lose a game that's not downloadable anymore, or pictures from that trip that you took with your family 15 years ago that you hold so dear. Explore means of data management. Explore backups, explore redundancies, research, learn, experiment. It'll take some time, but it's worth doing. Thank you for watching. I know this isn't likely a subject that is super appealing to a whole lot of people, but I really needed a chance to just talk about it. I've talked my friends' heads off about it, and none of them care. So I'm really excited to just have a through line to talk about it. I think that's pretty much all I've got to say on the subject for now. So I'm gonna go back to playing Kingdom Hearts. Did you know you can sell friendships in that game?
It's too bad I don't have any.
In